quiet then.
Good afternoon, and welcome back. So for those of you who are new to the leadership program, my name is Rishi Batra. I am director of the Academy for Leadership in the Legal Profession, and it's great to have you all out here for another successful semester. I just wanted to go over 3 or 4 quick announcements about the leadership program, and then I'm going to introduce Dean Benham, who will introduce our speaker today. So first things first, tomorrow afternoon at about 5 o'clock, there will be a reception honoring our Phase 2 and Phase 3 candidates. For those of you who are 1Ls, this is a nice chance to come out. The dean will be there. We'll do a little meet and greet with the dean. But on top of that, those of you who are already thinking about, as you might, your Phase 3 projects that will be the capstone to your leadership, to your academy, your time in the academy, this is a nice chance for you to come out and listen to sort of what some of the other students are accomplishing right now this year as part of their leadership program. So for those of you who already come up and ask me, hey, I'm considering this as a leadership project, is that going to work out? This is a nice chance to see some of those examples as well. On February 5th, Dean Emeritus Walt Huffman is going to be speaking about his thoughts on leadership. And those of you who know Dean Huffman, he has a lifetime of experience in leadership running the JAG program. And he will be talking about what he feels is the most important component of leadership, which is you yourself and what you bring to the table as a leader. The other thing I want you to be aware of is on February 7th, so that's Friday of next week, Michael Sawaya, he's the founding partner of the Sawaya Law Firm out in Colorado, also one of our most successful alums. He's going to be coming out to speak. He'll be doing a morning small group workshop, and we are opening up the small group workshop this time to those of you who are not in Phase 2 and Phase 3. So if you are a 1L and you are interested in doing a small group workshop with Michael Sawaya, please sign up. We're going to send out the sign-up link today, later on this afternoon. And he'll be talking about finding your leadership identity. So he has done a lot of work, both with other people as well as with himself, on finding your leadership identity. And so that small group workshop is going to be one-on-one, working with you on your leadership identity, and then there will be a noontime talk that Friday as well on the same themes, finding your internal authentic voice as a leader. So when we started this program, we said, you know, a lot of people think of leadership as, you know, I'm the person in charge, I'm the person that's the president, and a lot of what you will do as an associate is, particularly with your clients, you're going to be leading, sort of leading from behind. You're going to be helping people make good decisions without necessarily having that full leader, you know, without necessarily being tasked as an official leader. This is a really good opportunity to think more about how you will do that. I'd like to now introduce Dean Benham. Most of you in the room, I think, know Dean Benham very well, but he runs our regional externship program. He taught in our legal writing program. He teaches evidence, and he runs pretty much everything here at the law school. So he touches something, in some sense, everything that goes on in the law school, he touches a little bit of. Somebody says he's the consigliere of the law school, and Dean Benham is going to introduce our speaker here this afternoon.
Thank you, Professor Batra, for that frightening introduction. I touch things that people like around here. If you don't like it, that's another dean. I can introduce you to that dean. In any event, without further delay, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dustin Burrows, a proud Lubbock native, graduate of Rhodes College and Texas Tech Law School. He's currently a partner at McCleskey, Harriger, Brazill, and Graf of Lubbock. He has a very interesting practice in commercial litigation, construction law, personal injury, and other areas. He was recently recognized as a Texas super lawyer, rising star, and today he will be visiting with you about the economics of an associate, and in particular, how your first boss will evaluate you. So, without further ado, Dustin Burrows.
Thank you for the nice introduction, Dean Benham. In preparing for today, I did some research of my own. I wanted to make sure what I came here with basically was representative not only of how I see being an associate, but what other of my peers and people I respect across the state actually see as well. So I spoke to a partner in the oil and gas section over at Haynes and Boone. I talked to somebody at Jackson Walker who does bankruptcy law. I talked to someone in Beaumont at Provost and Humphrey, an attorney there who's very successful. I talked to a med-mal lawyer who's not doing much med-mal law anymore at Thompson & Co. I also spoke to some of my own partners who have a variety of experiences, and a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer whose net worth is probably greater than all of the people I just mentioned combined. I also looked at some articles, and I left some on the table. If you haven't gotten one, I do commend them to your reading. So the questions I asked my peers, and I tried to answer for myself, were basically, what are the misconceptions an associate starts out with whenever they begin their career? Also, the second question is, what are the qualities, the traits of those successful associates who eventually become equity partners as opposed to non-equity partners? So, across the board, interestingly, everybody I spoke with, and this is something I recognized as well, said the number one misconception a brand new associate has is this. When they begin working, they think that they've accomplished something by having a law degree, by being on law review, being on board of barristers, or being high in their class rank. They think that actually matters to their new boss. The truth of the matter is, what it mattered was to do for them was it got your foot in the door. Truly, once you get started, all that matters is now you are working for real clients with real problems under real deadlines and have real pressures. And all of the achievements you've had in law school may have gotten you the job, but nobody really cares about that anymore. And you'd be surprised how many people start as an associate and think, you know, I did this, so there's something really special and unique about me. I think the statistic is there's 46,000 graduates a year from law school, and each of us is going to or have been one of just those. The other, I guess, common misconception is that lawyers are rich. Unfortunately, that's just not true across the board. There are very few that actually meet the definition of rich. And I think a lot of the associates who start out think, well, because I'm a lawyer, that means I'm going to be rich someday. The other one that I heard from a lot of people was that when an associate starts out, they may get hired into a particular part of the law, or they think that they're going to be a bankruptcy lawyer. They think they may be a med-mal lawyer. They may think that they do commercial litigation, and they end up pigeonholing themselves. So when a partner from another section comes along and says, you know, associate, I know you do bankruptcy work, but would you help me out on this project because it's litigation? That associate may say no or shy away from it or shy away from getting involved. They end up pigeonholing themselves in that particular area. This was particularly interesting to me because the partner I spoke with was a person at Thompson & Co. who did med-mal. And she was asked to work on some HIPAA regulation compliance at one point in time in her med-mal career. That's more transactional based. It wasn't really in the litigation part. So she initially wanted to basically say, you know, I'm a senior associate. I'm doing this med-mal litigation, med-mal defense for these doctors. I really don't want to do transactional work. But she fought that temptation, and I promise you, not all associates would, and she went ahead and accepted that assignment. Well, because of that, she ended up getting more and more HIPAA compliance work and eventually built up a significant part of her practice in HIPAA compliance work, which she didn't think she would like, and turns out she did. And she told me, you know, that was the best thing I ever did, because in 2004 they did tort reform. And she went in 2006 from having 20, 25 files in her cabinet that she was actively working on to one. So it was that decision to go ahead and take that HIPAA work and to try something different that basically allowed her to continue to be profitable in that firm. And she watched other associates who were not willing to branch out and try something different once they had started. One thing that I heard from most of the partners is basically a lot of the associates are so vested in their careers that they want their families and spouses and children to take a back seat to their careers. They said ultimately they've seen more people's legal careers ruined by making that choice at the expense of the family because it led to personal problems and other issues. I found it interesting that I would say of the 10 people I spoke with, 7 or 8 of them brought that to my attention. This is my personal pet peeve about new associates is they tend to want to shoot from the hip. That because they did well in law school and we hired them and they graduated high in their class, They believe that they know the answer to the law. And I'll ask them what the law is on something, and rather than looking it up and giving me a well-reasoned argument, they'll tell me what they believe the law to be. And oftentimes I find they're mistaken. And that's probably one of the worst mistakes an associate, at least in my firm, can make. I'll give you two examples of that have happened to me somewhat recently. The first one came about 6 or 7 years ago in my career, and I was trying a case. We were trying a case in Hockley County. I was lead counsel on it, and it was a decent case. But about 2 days into it, my client, we put him on the stand. He told the story as he had told me every time in my office, over and over and over again. It came out great. I passed the witness, and the counsel on the other side asked him some questions, and I heard a completely new story about how everything had happened for the first time in front of the jury by the other counsel. It was a miserable, humiliating experience for me, something that you cannot recover from. Nonetheless, we lost the jury trial, and I had taken a third-year law student who was clerking with my firm to watch all 4 or 5 days during the summer to see what was going on. I knew when we got the verdict back why we had lost. It was because my client had basically admitted that everything that had happened he had set up, and he was the cause of his own accident, and we should have lost the case. But for the 45-minute ride home, that third-year law student decided that he was going to tell me all the things he would have done differently in that trial and how he could have won the case. Took everything I had in my power to not pull over on the ride home and ask him to step out because we needed some peace and quiet as we licked our wounds. But needless to say, he was not asked to clerk with us again after that point. Second example, does anybody here know what ipse-dixit means? It's Latin, so it must be important. It basically means it is because I say it is, and that's kind of what I was getting at. So many times the associates that come across in my firm, again, when I ask them for something about the law, they tell me what it is, and their best reasoning is ipse-dixit. It is because I say it is, and that's a tough one. So the second question I asked these other lawyers, and I looked at in the materials, and I thought about myself. And by the way, I'll get back to why I think these two questions are so important to associate economics. But the second question is, so what are the traits of partners in waiting? The associates who one day are going to be equity partners. What are the characteristics that you basically see in them? Probably the most important one I will tell you is enthusiasm. An associate who's going to make it to partner in my law firm typically is enthusiastic about the law. They really are interested and competitive in getting the answers right. They're curious about how their work fits into the overall scheme of things. And there's just this general desire to stay involved in whatever case they've been involved in. For instance, if I ask them to do a memorandum, and after they do that, they'll come back and ask me questions about how that memorandum fits in. That really goes to my second point. I love it when associates ask me questions. It frightens me when I have an associate who's trying to do litigation and they don't ask me anything. It makes me think that maybe they already feel they know everything. But people who ask questions, associates, tend to be the ones that we ask to become partners later on. They want to know how everything is, and of course that's how they learn. Put in the hours. That's another thing that I heard over and over again. The memorandum I was handed when I started as an associate with my law firm, I've included in this PowerPoint, but you'll see what basically I was told is it doesn't matter if I work from 8 to 5 or 8 to 7 or 7 to 7 or whatever it is. The rule of thumb was be there to make coffee in the morning before any of the other partners get there. You don't want any of the partners to make their own pot of coffee, and wait till all of them leave before you go home. Whenever that may be. In some firms that may be 5 o'clock, in some firms that may be 6. But the point was, you don't want the partners thinking that you're there less than them if you can help it. Probably the most interesting comment that I got, the one that I've been thinking about in all honesty all weekend, was from my managing partner at my law firm. The person who, I'm in charge of all the finances for my law firm, and so my managing partner is who I bring all this information to, and I truly have a lot of respect for him. He's been doing it for 40 years now. And I said, so what is the number one quality that you look at when evaluating whether or not an associate is going to become a partner in our firm? And this floored me because I'd never thought about it, and he's so right. He said, it's how they treat their secretary. He said, you know, when they come in here and they boss her or him around and they do all these things and they act like they're not important, those people, they don't make it because they just have this air about them. But the ones who actually treat him or her with respect, those are the people that I see that have the humility to actually do this job and to serve their clients. And if that was the most interesting one, or let me say, if that was the one that was the most thoughtful, provoking for me, I would say the most interesting comment that I got was from that plaintiff's personal injury lawyer that I mentioned earlier, whose net worth, I believe, is probably worth all the other lawyers combined. And I got to talking to him, and he's got commercials on TV, and he goes by one of those, you know, names like the strong arm or the heavy hitter or the gorilla, and you know, he made a lot of money doing that. And I said, so when you hire a new associate at your firm, you know, what do you look for? And he said, well, I look at them as little pigs. Now, I mean, you know, when a lawyer like this tells you something like that, there's kind of a punchline to the joke. And so I said, okay, you know. I said, Ted, what do you mean by that? He goes, I look at them as personal income generators. Are they going to make me money or not? I said, that's what matters to me. And truly, even in all these law firms that I just said, they may say it a whole lot more politely, but I truly believe there's somebody in the back of the house, it's me at my law firm, and somebody else at another firm in Dallas or Houston that's in the back looking at the numbers every day to make sure that each of the associates is generating income for the partners. So this is really the heart of meat of my presentation. It's the practice of law. It's a debate that my partners have. It's a debate that I think every one of you will have. It is both a profession that you're getting into and a business. The professional side is taking care of your clients and doing your best job for them, and the business side is making money. It's not all one, it's not all the other. So I think the best way to kind of get into the economics of an associate is to describe the things that I look at daily and weekly and monthly to evaluate how my law firm is doing, and I know that each of the firms I mentioned, somebody there is doing the same thing. The first thing is daily reports. What I get on a day-to-day basis is I have a list of all of my attorneys, partners and associates, and I look at their receipts up to date through the month. I want to know how much income is coming in per associate or attorney. And if there's a big drop-off, for instance, they're collecting is halfway through the month and their collections are real low, I might go ask them, hey, what's the deal? Is there a client slow paying you? You know, do we need to look at maybe establishing a retainer for that client to make sure we can have it come in? You know, if they're having a really good month, I might want to go by and pat their back and say, hey, this is great, you know. You're having a really good month here. And so we look at the daily reports just to kind of make sure that we're meeting our budgets and we're going to have enough cash at the end of the month to not have to dip in reserves, and we can meet all of our obligations, pay all of our associates, and hopefully, at the end of the day, pay the partners who get their money at the end. And I look at it on an individual basis and also as an entire firm. You know, I want to know, you know, of the 15 to 20 lawyers in my law firm, are we as a whole functioning and operating on a month-to-month basis? So those are the things that I look at on a daily basis and try to make some projections about where our cash is going to be, kind of a cash flow report for those of you who have some business background. At the end of the month and the end of the year, this is the report that I pay attention to. It's basically a very dummied-down income statement. I want to know on a month-to-month basis how much I'm bringing in fees up here and how that compared to the previous month of the previous year. So I kind of have an idea. Now look at expenses. That's, for instance, if I go ahead and file a lawsuit for somebody and I pay the clerk $250 to accept service of it, I advance that money on behalf of one of my clients, but I also recoup it. We treat that differently than, of course, just earned fees. I look at my expenses and I see if there's, if there's a big fluctuation in it. And hopefully, what I find at the end of a given month is I have a positive increasing trend line. that from March 2013 to March 2014, I actually have more net income. It doesn't really matter if I have more fees. It matters how much more I have fees, less expenses. And so I want to see that positive uptick. And if I don't, I want to know why. Is it just a slow month? Again, are we getting slow paid? Is there something else out there why we don't have that positive upline from the year before last, same month? And then, of course, we do a year-to-date kind of cumulative average. This is probably more important because you may have an off January, but you can make it up in February. Maybe that you had a $100,000 payment that should have come in January 31st, but it came in February 1st. So what I really want to know throughout the entire year is how are we doing from the year before? And hopefully, at the end of the year, this is a positive number, which means those who own equity in the partnership, which is what I'm a part of, actually can take that extra money and pay it out based on the percentage ownership. And hopefully it's going up from the year before so that we're all happy. What I think, however, is probably most important to associates and partners on an individual basis is this report. Every law firm has some version of this report. I know it. It's called a break-even report. And I've used two examples here to really make what I think is the most important point I can make today for you. In this example, I have Associate A. And I compare that to partner. So if a partner brings in $500,000 in receipts in a given year, and they have a shared overhead, which is, we take rent, we take, art, whatever we spend money on, and we divide it out by the number of attorneys, then we share that overhead. We have a direct overhead number, which is if you have a legal assistant, mine might cost more than yours, but that's directly allocated to you. And then you take a salary. Whatever is left over is either a positive or negative number. In the example I've given you, the partner has a positive number of $60,000. So that means at the end of the year, after he's made his $500,000, he's taken his $300,000 salary, he's paid $100 back into the kitty for his share of expenses, plus another $40 for his direct share of expenses. He has put $60,000 into the coffers of the firm that can be divided out. That's what that partner has done. Associate A, in my example, has only had $200,000 of receipts, is being paid $100,000 salary, and then, of course, has the same share of overhead and direct overhead. So they have a negative number, a negative $30,000. So let me tell you what my observations are and how I believe your bosses will look at you if you're Associate A. First off, they're going to say, okay, of that $60,000 that I just made, $30,000 of it had to go back to this associate for his salary to subsidize him. Secondly, if I'm billing $300 an hour, I've got to work 100 hours during a given year to subsidize this associate who lost $30,000. And partners, sometimes vacation is rare. My wife would tell you that. And I'd look at it as, okay, I didn't get to take 2 weeks of vacation because I had to subsidize this associate. That's how I would personally look at that Associate A under what example I just gave you. Under that scenario, I believe that at my law firm and the partners I've talked to at other law firms would pay a lot closer attention to you as an associate in how much you're in the office, the quality of your work, what you're doing to do business development, because they want to know, is that $30,000 investment that I made this year going to pay off and eventually put money back into my pocket, or does it continue to be a black hole that just keeps draining money or not? That's the question that is going to be answered at the end of every single year. So by comparison, here's Associate B. Same numbers, partners the exact same, but this associate was able to collect $300,000 as their number. They put $70,000 back into the firm. So same observations. That partner or partnership has $70,000 more money they can distribute at the end of the year because that associate made it for them. That same partner in a two-man firm could work 233 hours less at the same billable rate. Could take 4 to 5 weeks more vacation with his family if he wanted to and still have the same income in his law firm because that associate's made him money. So, the takeaway from this is if you're that associate, Associate B, or you're my associate and you're associate B, I'm not really going to be concerned what time you get to the office, what time you leave the office. I'm not going to be concerned about a lot of things because you're making money for me. What I'm going to eventually become concerned about is your happiness. I want to make sure you stay with my law firm and continue to make money so I can take that 4 to 5 extra weeks of vacation. I want to make sure I'm doing whatever it takes to keep you there because now you're an income generator. So I promise you, between comparison to Associate A, Associate B, it's a much happier work environment if you're Associate B for that reason. This may be intuitive to everybody, but let me just tell you, the one thing that you guys can really control once you start a career as an associate is where your income comes from. I mean, that's going to determine if you're Associate A or Associate B. And there's really 4 places your income can come from. Going out in the community and getting new clients. You know, there's an acquisition cost to that, how much time and energy and effort you're going to have to put in there. But trust me, an associate can go get new clients outside of the firm is going to be blessed with the respect of their partners because not everybody can be a rainmaker. Number 2, existing clients, either of the firm or people you've done work before. If you do them a good job, you're going to get them back. It leads to my father's favorite quote, which says, you can shear a sheep many times, but you can only skin them once. I mean, if you treat your client right and you bill them fairly and you try to do a good job for them, you're going to get that existing client back so you can continue to bill more. And then probably the thing that I really would love for my takeaway to be is partners. As an associate, your best client are the partners of the firm you go to work for. They're the ones who have business. It's the easiest acquisition cost of new business. All you've got to do is go down to the hall and ask for it and do good work. And if you do work for them timely, punctually, and of high quality, you're going to get more of it and more of it and more of it. So if you think of the partners at your firm basically as clients that you're trying to take care of, the ones you're trying to basically impress and do good work for, you'll understand that's the easiest way to get new revenues so you can be partner or associate B instead of associate A. And then finally, of course, referrals. This is something that probably a lot of my business has come from, and maybe a lot of young attorneys, I don't know if I'd realize this starting out, is referrals from other attorneys, especially ones I've been up against. The attorneys that I have been up against, and I've done an incredibly good job and beaten them oftentimes and outworked them, but I've been polite, respectful, and treating them with dignity throughout, end up referring me a lot of really good business because they feel like I can do a better job. So keep that in the back of your mind whenever you start out as an associate. Instead of wanting to be competitive and seeing the other side is some sort of enemy and trying to talk down to them, if you can outwork them and beat them fairly, but treat them with respect, you'll get a lot of business from that. Now, once you start a firm, you can't really control this, but I challenge you guys, when you're looking for clerkships and you're thinking about which of the multiple offers you have to accept, think about the overhead. When you're in Dallas and you look at the ivory, wonderful, beautiful towers that some of them have built in the fanciest locations, and you walk in and you see marble everywhere and this beautiful artwork collection of modern art that you may or may not understand and fresh cut flowers, guess what? You guys are going to pay for it. The partners aren't paying for it every year after year, or the insurance and the upkeep on it. You guys as associates are going to get to. It's going to be something in that overhead line that you have got to basically pay off until you can get profitable. So, you just have to think about what you value coming out of the time that you spend. And so just a consideration. The best advice I can give you is once you start your new career as an associate, seek advice from other lawyers. I mean, find out what the real game is, what the real numbers are. Try to understand the finances early on. I see very few associates really trying to understand the finances of the law firm they're working at, and they do it at their own peril. But once you understand them well enough, keep a little spreadsheet. I started doing this probably my second or third year, and so I looked at my collections, which is what we gauge our performance on rather than billable hours. It's really the same thing, just kind of cousins of one another, but you look at it, and every month I looked at how much collections I had in. I predicted all of my different potential overhead, and so I knew whether or not I was on track in January in February and March to be like Associate B or Associate A, and I made sure that I was Associate B because I wanted to be an equity partner. And if you don't start early doing that, especially early in a year or a year early in a cycle, you know, it's really hard to be $100,000 under break even in November and try to make all that up in December. It just is not going to happen. So if you track it early and you try to stay on top of it and realize if you didn't hit your goals in January, you needed to go over and work hard in February, that's great. Just don't get too deep in the year where you can't do anything about it. Becoming a partner, I mean, that's the goal of every associate, I assume. It was at least my goal. There's a new phenomenon that I think has been around, but it just seems a lot of the partners I'm talking to in our law firm is actually considering. It's this non-equity idea. I called it a partner in name only. And basically, you know, we're going to have some partners in name only. They don't have to buy into the firm. They don't get any equity in the firm. So if there's anything at the end of the year, it's not going to be distributed out. But at the same time, we're going to pay them a very decent base living salary, and then we're going to split some income with them. If they can achieve something over and above break even, you know, we may take 60, they may take 40 up to a certain level and kind of go back and forth. A lot of this has to do with people who've been an associate for a very long time. They're working on firm's business. They don't have any of the clients of their own, and we don't particularly want to give them the extra percentage of retained earnings because it's been quite significant for my firm. But we do want to keep them around and try to do something that's equitable. And I think you guys, as you start your career, you're going to hear a lot about this non-equity thing. And I think it's going to be something that you see a lot of. Being a full equity partner is a different thing. My experience, and every one of my friends who graduated and everyone I've ever talked to is kind of the same thing. They say, when do you become a partner? Well, there's not really a magic answer. Sometimes it's a 5-year track. I've heard some firms are 3, some are 7, some are 15. But truly, I think the easiest way to put it is this, is you will become an equity partner in a firm when that firm needs you more than you need them. That is a guarantee. About the time you're in a law firm and you're looking around saying, you know, I'm putting $70,000 back into these guys' pockets every year. Why am I doing that? I could go out on my own and maybe make more money by myself, or maybe this firm over here, because I've got this book of business, would pay me a little bit more and maybe make me an equity partner. About the time you start getting antsy and realizing what your value is, the partners will pick up on it, and that's when they'll make you an equity partner. And you'll get the name, and it'll probably buy your peace and silence for a little while longer while, you know, it continues to go on. Okay, so the next 2 pages, I can't read this because it's a little too small of type, but you're welcome to take a look at it. So I clerked for my law firm the entire time I was in law school. I did both summer sessions. I did it fall and spring semester. My father was a partner in the law firm that I work at. I knew a lot of these guys since I was very, very young. Enjoyed all of their company, had a great clerkship experience, and took a little time off to basically study for the bar, passed the bar, showed up day 1 in the office, and I get handed the associate memo. Every single firm has got an associate memo. They just do. And the associate memo is kind of like the real world. All of a sudden it's, well, okay, here's what they really expect from you. You know, while you're clerking, it's baseball games and you know, going out to eat and courting and all the fun part about it. But when you actually start at a firm that's been successful and been around for 100 years or however long, there is some associate memo that basically you're going to get handed to you that says, okay, here's the real deal. And this happens to be the one that I got, and I'm happy to share it with anybody. We've changed ours since then, but anyways, I'd be thrilled. One of the things even talks about the fact that I need to be there in the morning to make coffee and stay as long as all the other partners are there. Okay. I'd love to take any questions if anybody has any. Yes?
I was inquiring about overhead and figuring out what your value is in the firm. Do you recommend waiting to get an offer and not write it up or
I'm sorry?
should you wait until you get the offer before you start asking about what the overhead is and those kind of questions? Or you say that in the aspect?
I think it depends on the firm. I've never actually encountered a situation where somebody that we were courting to be an associate sat down and asked those questions. I mean, I can't imagine any of them really had it on their minds. To me personally, I'd actually be really impressed if they cared enough about the business aspects of it. I mean, I'm a numbers guy. I'm a spreadsheet guy. I mean, I told you my first year I was creating spreadsheets to try to figure all of this stuff out. I mean, my background was business. I was really curious about all of this. To me, I'd be very impressed if an associate came to me and wanted to know all about this, because I would think, okay, they have the potential. They're really curious about making money, and that's what I want them to be curious about in the business aspects of it. Now, I think you have to be cautious, because I bet there's some firms that they think, well, wait a second, you know, he's already asked me about how much money he can get out of this and what he has to do and barely getting by. So I'd be cautious with how you approach it. I think you have to kind of use your judgment and feel your way around. I mean, surely that's what with most of us who decided to become lawyers, you know, we rely upon that gut instinct and intuition whether or not to ask the question or not. Yes?
You mentioned you're pretty proficient in spreadsheets, I guess. Do you think that that can be a good thing or a bad thing? Because I feel like if they find out that you can spit out Excel spreadsheets, you're going to get stuck spitting out Excel spreadsheets and actually doing, you know, legal work.
Yeah.
I know that's happened to me before, stuff in Excel.
Yeah, you know, there's some truth in that. I've been very blessed in the sense that I've always had a really good office manager who basically was competent and did not need me to do any of that type of stuff. But what I found is a lot of my partners' background was more in, you know, history or non-numbers, and we do a lot of commercial litigation. I mean, commercial litigation is probably 50 to 60% of my practice, and so much of it has to do with, you know, evaluating how much of a loss of income was, how much loss of business, and it's very spreadsheet intensive. And so I found myself in a lot of really great projects in the commercial litigation lawsuits that we were involved in, because I could either look at the spreadsheets and extrapolate from them what was important, figure out how to take the economist depositions, or, you know, create the spreadsheets for a presentation. I will tell you, by the way, I mean, I've been trying lawsuits. I guess I started my first lawsuit I tried after my first year being an associate, and I've tried them one or two every year since then. I have not used a PowerPoint presentation since my first year until today. You know, I usually, if there's a spreadsheet that needs to be presented to a jury, I usually retain an expert to actually do that for me. Within the context of that, I may work with them and try to help them and give some guidance, but I'm not creating my own spreadsheets and testifying because the court wouldn't look too fondly on me trying to be a witness and a lawyer. Does that answer the question? Anyone else? Yes?
How soon do you expect an associate to break even? I mean, there's obviously a lag in billing collection, so is it, you know, a matter of months, a year?
I expect to lose money on you in the first year. I mean, my law firm, I know without a doubt I'm going to lose money on you. I say I want you to break even the first year. It's never going to happen. I mean, in fact, the associates that I've hired, I'd rather them be at some really great CLEs. I'd rather them basically hang out and watch my depositions. I'd rather them go to my trials. I mean, the associate that we just hired, she started with us, I guess, in October. I tried a multi-million-dollar copyright IP case in federal court for a week and a half. I mean, I had her there the entire time. She couldn't bill for that. It's not fair to the client. But, I mean, I wanted her there to see it. I mean, how many times do you actually get to do that, you know, as an associate? I think she learned more from it. So I went ahead and made the assumption that I'm going to lose a lot of money on her the first year. Might as well just go ahead and lose a ton of money on her the first year, you know. But she'll get the experience, and hopefully that pays off. About the second year, you know, hopefully I'm starting to see that you're able to do my work for me. I mean, that's really what my associates do, is they're doing my work for me and hopefully making me look good. And they're doing the briefing, and they're starting to actually add value to the projects. And by the third year, I want to see some client ability, and probably truly after, you know, the third year, which is kind of, you know, that first year just depends when you actually start. But by the third year, I'm really expecting a break even, and then the years 4 and 5 at my firm, if you want to be a partner, you need to make money. I mean, you need to figure out the business side of it. And a lot of people don't want to do that because they kind of look down their nose at the business aspects of it. You know, look, it's a profession. I'm really smart. I take care of my clients. In fact, I'm smarter than, you know, you, Mr. Burrows. I mean, you know, and they probably are. But, you know, the business side of it is, can you actually produce a profit? Because if all of us were just consummate professionals and we gave away our services for free, the business would be out of business. I mean, my firm has been around for 85 years, so there's a reason for that, is because we continue to make a profit. So years 4 and 5, I want to see some development and getting your own book of business, and I want to see some ability to actually make money and that to be really valuable to you. Because then all of a sudden it's like, all right, maybe you could actually be a partner in the business side of it and not just a professional who's working with me. I'll treat you like a professional for day one. Treating you like a business partner usually takes 5 years. Yes?
I have a question about contingency matters that are handled in a traditionally hourly billing firm, like I would consider McCleskey a traditionally hourly billing firm. I guess my first question is, do you handle any contingency matters in your firm? And then second, if you're an associate and you don't originate a contingency matter, so you're just working on partners' origination, how do you get credit when if a fee comes in? And if a fee doesn't come in because you lose, you get zero credit.
All right, so let me go back to this. I think whether you're at a hybrid firm, a traditionally hourly firm, or a completely contingency firm, somebody's looking at these numbers. They're trying to decide how much income actually came in and whether or not you're positive above break even. In my firm, I do a lot of contingency work. I'd say 40% of my revenues, if not 50% in a given year, are generated from some case probably that I originated 2 years ago. And so when that comes in, if I'm the originator, I get to decide how much of that goes to my collections versus everybody else. You know, on a big $1 million fee case, I'm real popular around the office. Everybody's reminding me how much work they really did on that case, but I get to dole it out the way I see fit. And at the end of the year, there's a bonus structure in my firm, as in every firm, that rewards origination and bringing the big fees in. It's a percentage of income. So we treat it the same, no differently than hourly work. So if I bill and I'm able to collect $300,000 in hourly work during the year, that goes to where I'm at. And if I get another $300,000 from contingency fees, the $600,000 is treated completely and exactly the same for determining whether I go up in points, down in points, which are how much I make on a monthly basis, plus how much I make in my bonuses. As an associate, you want to be the originator if you can. I've been in both roles. I've been the originator of a contingency fee case where I got to dole it out to the partners, which is part of the reason I was able to make partner a little bit earlier, you know, and I've been the person who basically had to rely upon the partner who brought it in to dole it out. It's a tough deal. Yeah.
When exercising your discretion as the originator,
Yeah.
did the associates who worked on your matter, or the other partners who worked on your matter, did they report their time to you, review those reports to try to be fair, or do you play? I mean, I don't suggest that you.
No. I try my hardest to. So here's my working theory on contingency fee cases. I only want to take cases that basically I can make twice my hourly rate than I could on hourly cases, because I want to make sure the risk of not getting paid is worth taking it. So I keep track of my time. And some of these are commercial cases, so attorney's fee time is trackable for a reason. If it's personal injury, it doesn't matter because you're not going to get your attorney's fees back. Everybody else, I have tracked their time. So when I look through it and I evaluate it, I want to know, number one, was my time, instead of billing out at $250 an hour, did I actually have an effective rate of $500 an hour? And for the associates who did work on it, if they worked 10 hours, I try to double their hourly rate when I give them credit, to be fair, to reward them for having taken the time and not got the collections in a given year for working on it for me. So I want them to come back. It's kind of internal politics. I want those associates to want to work on my contingency fee cases, not to run the other way whenever, you know, I come around. I've been zeroed out once, and don't want to do that again. Did that kind of cover everything? Yeah. Yes.
I know a lot of us are getting ready for summer internships, and I think what you said at the beginning about how even if we're doing really well, that it's just going to get our foot in the door even probably for summer internships. So what can we do this summer to make sure that we make a really good impression on firms or judges or whatever?
Yeah, we have a law clerk right now who made a really good impression on me. So I had a case that I took over for an insurance company that was going to trial in 4 weeks, and it was a big case over a $3 million remodel in Midland that went bad. And I mean, $3 million remodel in Midland's already bad. But so I took it over. The insurance company didn't want to pay Dallas rates; they wanted to pay my rates, and we had 15,000 pages of documents, and we had somebody who was clerking with us, and he's one of the students here, and I was extremely impressed because, I mean, I was working, till midnight every night in that 4-week time getting ready for the trial, and he wanted to be there. I mean, I didn't say come up here, do this. I mean, he wanted to be there. He was curious. On Saturdays, he would come in, I'd order pizza, and he'd be asking questions about what was going on. And, I mean, he thought it was really cool, what we were doing and how we were organizing all of those documents and kind of the strategy. And, I mean, my number one thing is if somebody is enthusiastic and interested in my work and wants to get involved, that means more to me than just about anything, because so many lawyers kind of make that mistake that they think they're going to be rich, and therefore, since I'm a lawyer, I must be rich, and they're doing it for the money. And it's just a job for them, and they end up working about 4 or 5 years, maybe paying off their student loans, and then they're out of the profession because it's miserable. I mean, if you find what you love, I mean, you'll never have to work another day in your life, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. And I suspect most of my peers who've been successful, I mean, the guys I talk to have been doing it 20, 30 years and very prominent in their profession and respected. I think that's what they're looking for as well. Is this somebody that I'd actually want to go out with and have a dinner with afterwards because they're likable? And are they enthusiastic about the type of work that I do such that I think that they're going to stick around and put 100% into it? Anybody else? Yes? Would I?
No, what would you recommend? Maybe changing governments or government ends up like the type of role that you want to do, constantly going away from that firm. Would you try to follow the type of role that you like to practice?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if I put myself in your shoes, and let's say, for example, that I was in a firm and I realized that litigation is what I love, and that's what I love. If I'm in the office writing a brief, I am not happy that day. If I'm out taking a deposition or, trying a case, I'm happy that day. I mean, I either go home happy or I go home upset, depending on what I'm doing. And all of a sudden, I'm at a firm, I can't control what business is coming in, which I would hate to be in that position. I would try everything to avoid it. And they were trying to force me into drawing oil and gas deeds, which I've done before. I mean, and I get it. It's a neat deal. But I'd probably look at changing careers. I mean, because, or changing law firms and try to actually do what I like. I think that if you enjoy what you do, you'll be successful at it. And I see that all the time. Sometimes there's bad fits in the law even. Okay, must be